The salary is $52,000. It has been $52,000 for 4 years. Not because the company hasn't offered raises. They have, small ones, 2% and 3% in alternating years, enough to feel like acknowledgement without changing anything material. The most recent increase brought you to $54,080, which is $52,000, with a decimal point moved and a sense of motion that the bank account does not confirm. You are 34. You are good at what you do. The people above you know this and demonstrate it through the specific currency of people who need you where you are. Appreciation, flexibility, and raises calibrated precisely to retention without growth. You are retained. You are not growing. The distinction is the one nobody explains to you directly, because explaining it would require them to say, "We are paying you the minimum required to keep you, not the amount your output actually warrants." The minimum required to keep you is, it turns out, not enough to build a life on. Not in the way you imagined the life. Not with the margin you assumed would arrive once things settled. Things have settled. The margin has not arrived. What staying the same costs. Inflation runs at 3.1% annually on average. Your raises have averaged 2.4%. The gap is 0.7% per year, which sounds like nothing and is not nothing. Over 4 years, it means your purchasing power has quietly decreased while your nominal salary increased. You are earning more dollars that buy less than the dollars you earned before. The raise felt like forward motion. The raise was backward motion wearing the costume of progress. The rent that was $1,180 when you took the job is $1,390 now. The groceries that ran $340 a month are $430. The utilities, the insurance, the car expenses, every fixed cost has inflated at a rate your income did not match. And the cumulative effect is a budget that is tighter at $54,080 than it was at $52,000, which should be impossible, and is the arithmetic of an income that does not grow with the world it exists inside. You have $8,400 in savings. You have $19,000 in a 401k. You have not been able to increase your retirement contribution in 2 years because the budget does not accommodate it. You are not behind in any visible way. You are falling behind in the invisible way, the slow way, the way that becomes visible only when you look at where you thought you'd be at 34 and compare it to where you are. The job you didn't take. 3 years ago, a recruiting call. A role at $68,000, $16,000 more, in a company a colleague had joined and spoken well of. You had a conversation. The role was interesting. The company was stable. The commute was 20 minutes longer, and the health insurance was slightly different, and the known quantity of where you were felt against the unknown quantity of somewhere new, like the safer choice. You declined. You sent a polite email. You went back to the desk you knew, and the work you knew, and the manager who appreciated you in the specific way of someone who needed you not to leave. The $16,000 you didn't take, invested from that point at 7% annually, would be $68,000 today across 3 years of compounding and contributions. That is not the most important cost. The most important cost is the salary you would have been building on. A $68,000 starting point with the same 3% annual raises you've been receiving puts you at $74,000 today. You are at $54,080. The gap is nearly $20,000 a year, and it will run forward on compound for the rest of your career unless something actively closes it. Something will not automatically close it. Nothing in a career closes passively. The gap requires an action, a decision, a willingness to trade the comfort of the known for the leverage of the move. What the income ceiling does to everything else. At $54,080, the emergency fund recommendation is 3 to 6 months of expenses. Your expenses run $3,900 a month. 6 months is $23,400. You have $8,400. The gap means one significant unplanned event. A medical bill, a car replacement, a gap in employment converts from an inconvenience to a structural problem. You are not in danger. You are without cushion, which is a different condition that feels similar until it isn't. The house you looked at in March requires $44,000 down at the price point that makes sense for your market. At your current savings rate of $400 a month, which is the maximum the budget allows, you will have the down payment in 9 years. You will be 43. The house will not be at the price point it is today. The market has not historically waited 9 years for anyone's savings account to catch up. The retirement math is the quietest problem. At $19,000 in a 401k at 34, contributing at your current rate, you arrive at 65 with approximately $210,000, assuming 7% average return. The income that produces is $8,400 a year under the 4% withdrawal rule. Social Security adds perhaps $1,800 a month if your earning history remains at this level. Total retirement income, approximately $30,000 annually. Your current spending is $46,800. The gap in retirement is not a rounding error. It is a restructuring of what retirement means, which is another way of saying it is a restructuring of what the last 20 years of your life look like. None of this is because you made bad decisions. You saved what you could. You avoided the debts that were avoidable. You lived within the income. Living within an income that does not grow is the constraint that none of the other good decisions can overcome. Why the income didn't grow? The reason is simpler and more uncomfortable than a systemic failure. The income didn't grow because growing income requires asking for more, or moving to where more is available. And both of those things feel like risk in a way that staying feels like safety. The ask felt presumptuous. The job market felt uncertain. The known quantity felt like the responsible choice for a person in your situation, and you have been in your situation long enough that the situation began to feel permanent rather than chosen. The situation is chosen. This is the part that is hardest to hold clearly. Every year you stayed was a year you chose. The choice had reasons. The reasons were real. The choice also had a cost, calculable, specific, running forward, and the cost was not visible in the reasons the way the reasons were visible in the choice. What the income growth actually requires. Not a career change, not a reinvention, not an MBA or a pivot or a 5-year plan assembled on a weekend. A conversation, or a transfer, or a role applied for while currently employed, which is the lowest risk version of this because it requires nothing until it produces an offer. And an offer requires only a decision, not a leap. The market for your skills, researched on 2 evenings using publicly available compensation data, shows a range of $67,000 to $81,000 for your experience level and function in your geography. You are at $54,080. The market is not aware of your loyalty. The market pays the range. You are receiving $13,000 below the bottom of it because you have not introduced yourself to the market in 4 years. You send 3 applications on a Thursday night, not frantically. Specifically, to roles that are a genuine match, at companies you would consider, at salary ranges that reflect the market, rather than your current employer's estimate of what you'll accept. 2. Call back. 1 moves through 3 interviews and produces an offer at $71,000. You counter at $74,000. They come to $72,500. You accept on a Tuesday and give notice on a Wednesday, and the conversation with your manager, which you had been dreading for 3 years as a hypothetical, lasts 12 minutes and ends with genuine warmth and a request to stay in touch. The $18,420 annual difference begins compounding immediately. The savings rate increases to $900 a month within 6 months of the new role. The down payment timeline moves from 9 years to 4. The retirement account receives its first maximum annual contribution. None of this required a dramatic reinvention. It required 3 applications on a Thursday, 2 phone screens, and the willingness to let the number on the offer be larger than the number on the badge you'd been wearing for 4 years. The salary was $52,000. It had been $52,000 too long. The only thing that changed it was deciding it was time for it to change, and acting on the decision before another year made the acting feel even harder. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.